Welcome to the Rearview Mirror Podcast, looking back on all that we don't know and a few things that we do. Doesn't take a lot.
All right.
Hey, welcome back. Are we on?
We are back. We are on. Good Wednesday afternoon.
Oh, man.
Season
Wednesday.
2 is different, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Wednesdays,
Friday mornings,
Fridays. We're going to do Wednesday and Friday this week.
You never know, and may not release one until next week.
Oh, the people will be clamoring.
Oh, it will. There'll be terrible weekends for some folks if we don't release.
It'll create need and want. Isn't that what we're after?
Well, that's why our numbers are flying somewhere.
Build our brand.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, that was funny. We talked about that a little bit last time.
We did.
Neither of us have a clue what that means.
Well, and this is funny too. That I was telling somebody this the other day. Somebody asked me, how many, approximately how many listeners do you guys have?
Uh-huh.
And I said, okay, this is what happens when two old guys do a podcast. I've asked Jeff that question.
Yeah.
And I have paragraphs of information from him. None telling me even close to what that meant, how many people listen to us.
Yeah.
And so I stopped asking.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows.
Yeah. I just copy and paste what it says, but I can't figure out what it means either.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
But that's okay.
Sure. I was just curious.
We're just doing this really for the two of us.
Yeah, my narcissism was rubbed off on you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that it had a very far,
far to
go to rub off. Yeah. It's been there at some level. Yeah. Hey, let's play with another question from listener day. You want to do that?
Let's do it.
Okay. So I'm going to pair.
Somebody calling in right now?
Yeah. Oh, just a second. Yeah. Hello, you're on the air. No, we got this email, and it's pretty lengthy, but I've kind of summarized the question that they're asking this way. Okay. They find themselves often getting in a situation with a couple family members who are in conflict, and they feel like they kind of get pulled into the conflict to be the peacemaker. They try to resolve it. And they feel this. It sounds like they feel this really strong sense of, man, I've got to help and love out, because deep empathic personality sounds like. So they love these people, they care about them. Prefers conflict free, so probably trying to resolve the conflict. Mm-hmm. And finds themselves feeling like, well, I should do that. I need to do that. It's important for me to do, to try to bring peace between my two friends or my two family members who love each other. But what they're asking basically is, hey, I don't know that I really want to keep doing this. How do I get out of this?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Yeah. Thoughts on that, just off the top of your head?
Boy, I think there's going to be, whoever's listening, I think there's going to be at least one or two people in the family that resonate with that.
Mm-hmm. Seems like that's a role in a lot of families for somebody.
It is, and it's distinct.
Yeah, you see it pretty quickly if you're right.
One of my nephews had to do an exercise in high school a few years ago on my side of the family, and he had to take all the members of the family and assign them a role from the King's Court back in the day, 1700s.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
and it was hysterical. Who he made the queen, and of course I was the court jester. And
congratulations!
But like even the kids, like my niece will say, "Well, I know what the pyramid is in our family, and who makes the decisions."
Yes.
So everybody understands who falls in that role, but I do think it's a distinct role. Who's going to jump in and solve it? Who's going to fix it? If there's a plan to be made, who's going to have to make the plan? Right. It won't get done.
Right. It is that exercise your nephew, you said, was doing. It's kind of like in that family systems theory world where you try to look at the system of family and how it works and how different people do play different roles. But I think this question today it really plays to that peacekeeper, that peacemaker kind of role that again a lot of families seem to end up with. And some people, they thrive in doing it. They want to do it. And some of them, there's kind of a natural wiring, personality, maybe even birth order stuff that plays out for them to be in that place. And I think what I love about this question is there comes a point when either A, you get tired of being in that role, and but you feel like the expectation of the whole system is that I have to do that. Or B, somebody who loves you is looking at you going, dude, that is so not good for you to keep wearing the referee shirt every time the family gets together, and wanting to help them get out of it.
Sometimes, though, even though I'm not even sure that has to be the peacemaker all the time, though. I think it's whoever's looked to keep the family patterns the way they've been. So it can be the peacemaker. I know in this specific example it is.
Sounds like it.
It can be the planner. It can be the kind of the head person, that's supposed to keep things flowing in a certain way, or make sure everybody's having a good time. It's just whoever feels most responsible for that family unit staying as a unit of some kind.
Yeah. then they want to get everybody, quote unquote, to the table. Let's figure out what's broken.
So even in that's a peacemaker. Even when there's no conflict, I think that's always aware of everyone's needs.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of sometimes maybe letting stuff be as it is.
Yeah.
Until the person with the issue is courageous enough to bring it up,
right.
or the two people in conflict figure out how to resolve it.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. When I heard this question, read the question, I think one of the first phrases that came to my mind is, it sounds like that person is kind of in the space of being super empathic, really cares, wants to help, but almost over functioning in their empathy. So now it's like, oh my gosh, Joe and Susie are at odds. I have to step in. I'm the one that has to fix it. And, that's a role that from the outside early on can sound noble, but after a while it can become, I think, really exhausting when you feel like, man, it's always up to me to make sure that, brother and sister are doing well with each other. And then if you're not careful, because what happens so often is you end up being triangulated. Well, he told me this, but she told me this, and it's not the same. And so what do I do with it? And then in the middle of that triangulation, at some point, the two of them, Joe and Susie, get together and they resolve the problem. But now you're the one that's still carrying all the burden on it,
Right.
And I've had some of this in my role, I think, earlier in life, not in my family as much as in work, where I'd find myself in these triangulated positions, trying to keep everybody happy. And for me, health was when I would go, wow, that sounds hard. When are you going to go talk to him?
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds hard. When are you guys going to sit down? Because it sounds like you're really frustrated about that.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's hard to do if you feel like the value is, well, I can carry both their weights and help them. That's not a healthy place to be, I think.
Well, like a lot of things we've talked about, when you step back, I think you have to ask yourself, if you're that person, the peacemaker person, hey, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Chances are, if you're empathic, it fuels something in you.
Yeah.
And feeds something in you.
Oh, it does.
And so that's okay. We're all, I think we all get joy from the way God's wired us. Should.
Mm-hmm.
And like everything, strengths or weaknesses.
Yes. Yeah.
So there comes a point where you can't fix every problem.
Yeah.
And some wisdom in knowing I might not be able to fix this one.
I wish I could remember who said this to me years ago, but it was the beginning of a game changer for me in a situation like this, where I would feel like I have to step in and fix it because somebody would, maybe one employee would tell me this was going on with another employee, and then I felt like I had to go talk to the other employee. Literally classic triangulation I would get caught in. But I think what would pull my heartstrings would be the first person that came and talked with me. I could just see how deep their pain was, or how upset they were about this, and it was kind of crisis-like for that person in that moment, right? Here's the line somebody gave me: Jeff, their crisis is not your crisis. Mm-hmm. And yet that's so simple, Steve. But I truly remember hearing it, and I remember thinking, okay, I don't think I'm ever going to forget those words, and I haven't. And I live by them in such a different way to be able to go, wow, that does sound really bad. That does sound really hard, but I'm not a part of that. I'll be glad to set up a meeting for the two of you if y'all don't know how to do that. But that's the end of my job.
Did you have a hard time adopting that philosophy?
I think it took some hours to, in my mind to change that over. I think of 10,000 hours, but it did take a season of going, oh, well, I go, my tendency, it's kind of where I felt that sense of, I think I'm almost an emotional enmeshment with people. Like, oh my gosh, well, if I can just show up and really help them out, that.
So you wanted to do that?
Well, and there was something very altruistic in it. I wanted to help them. There was also something very self-absorbed in it. I felt good when I could be the helper, right? Kind of, we've talked about this just, I think, even last episode a little bit. But the healthy place for me was when I could go, wow, this is, not my monkey, not my circus. I don't have to fix this, but I can be empathic and hear him say, wow, that sounds really hard. I don't have the emotional bandwidth to help you with this, but Can I encourage you to go talk to that person about it instead of talking to me about it? I think even it helped me get to the place of being able to go, gosh, if you're telling me about your frustration, Steve, if you're telling me about your frustration with Joe, at one level, if I just listen to that, I'm participating at one level in gossip. I'm not really being your friend. Mm. The way I love you best is say, hey, Steve, you need to call Joe and go to lunch with him. You guys need to talk. It sounds like there's some crap going on y'all need to work through.
Right.
And, when I started realizing, man, that's the healthiest way for me to care, for me to be involved is empower you or encourage you to, man, sounds like that's tough. Go deal with it.
Would you say in your counseling world, most of our families of origin don't do conflict particularly well?
Oh man, I'd say this: it's the exception to find those who do conflict well versus the rule. In my opinion, at least the demographic that shows up in my office is most people when they tell me about their families they were raised in. Tell me about your family of origin. There's withdrawal. There's explosions that happen. There's passive aggressive comments. There's really unhealthy ways of dealing with conflict. And so usually when I say, how is conflict handled in your family, it's almost like one parent got angry and big and demonstrative, and one parent withdrew, shut down, stonewalled. I mean, it's almost stereotypical how frequently I hear that. Very rarely do I hear stories where people go, no, man, my parents, they were really good with conflict. They did it in front of us, but they did it in a healthy way. Yeah. That's the other thing I'll hear sometimes is, oh, I know my parents probably had conflict, but we never saw it. It was that old value of mom and dad need to have conflict behind closed doors always.
There's nobility in that.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure there are topics that's wisdom, but I think there's also something really wise about a mom and dad learning to have conflict in such a healthy way that the kids can see it, because if not, where will the kids ever learn to do conflict in a healthy fashion?
Well, then they grow older and they have conflict and they think it's abnormal.
Yeah, or it's the end of the world. Right. It feels bigger than it is. I remember when Laura and I years ago were introduced to John Gottman and all of his research on relationships, and he talks about the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and it's these 4 styles of relating that when they're present in a marriage, they're really dangerous. Have we talked about this before? Mm-hmm. Okay, the little love lab he had. That's right. Well, I won't go back through it all of it, but because that was back in season 1, and that's been a lifetime ago.
So we could do reruns, like.
No, but if you remember, he was just talking about, there's people who turn to criticism, contempt, defensive,ness, and stonewalling. Just 4 different negative patterns that can happen that keeps conflict from being resolved. So when I just become critical, which means I'm blaming you, I'm not taking responsibility. Similar to defensiveness, except defensiveness is more about me attacking you and blaming you. Criticism is more about me just finding ways to belittle you, put you down. And I always say contempt is kind of like criticism on steroids. Contempt is super dismissive. It's the you're so stupid, the roll of the eye, the I don't care about you, or it's the stonewalling where you just can't reach me. But that's what I see in a lot of families, is just that we don't know how to do it. And even in this question that's on the table for us today, I wonder for this person that's getting caught in between these other 2 people that are in conflict, I wonder if the other 2 people are turning to shutting down or defensiveness, an unhealthy way of trying to resolve conflict. And so then this peacemaker type feels like, well, I've got to solve it, instead of going, man, you guys don't know how to do conflict. You need some help learning how to do that.
Yeah. I think for that role too, you think about it. If you're the peacemaker, the glue, the kind of family gatherer, for lack of a better term, and so you probably have an empathic bent anyway, and your family didn't do conflict in a super healthy way growing up, then you got a lot of things to be aware of. Yeah,
I think about this sentence that I think plays out in some people's minds. If I don't get involved, everything's going to stay messed up. And going back to what you said a few minutes ago, that doesn't have to be just a peacemaker. That could be an Enneagram 3 that's trying to be efficient, an 8 that I'm more powerful than these people. I mean, probably any of the 9 types. That thought, man, if I don't get involved, everything's going to fall apart.
If I don't do it, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
And it won't get done.
Yeah. It is when you think about your days of being a parent, when you think about, I know you're still a parent, but when your kids were home and young, even with you and Jen, like, is that a thought that you ever felt like you were contending with? Like, man, if I don't get involved with this right now, it's going to fall apart.
Well, what I would say, and kind of my standard answer is, our marriage dance has always been, Jen feels that way more than I do.
Okay.
And she would like me to be more involved in things. If you peel back the layers of the onion a little bit, you'll find I can control and manipulate and try to get the things I want. I just do it in a little more subversive way.
Thanks for your honesty. Yeah.
I'm a subtle, I like subtle humor. I like subtle nuances. I'm just a subtlety.
Yeah.
That's more the way my brain works. And so I do think I grew up in an environment that was changing more than her environment. And so it was by nature a little more chaotic, not in a bad way all the time, but just more, it was more chaotic. Different schools and different things, and we did what we had to do. And what I learned from that is I don't mind a certain level of chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't have to have all things put together. And so she would prefer the unchaotic, but I think what happens is when we're both healthy and get on the same page, we're really good about that. And I've come to learn over the 30 years, hey, I need to try to step into this chaos and bring some order.
Yeah.
And she's learned, just because A and B are added up, it doesn't mean they're going to add to C.
Right. Right.
And so I think a lot of things that happened with our kids, I had a friend the other day tell me the story about a kid that something happened to them and they couldn't go to the private school of their dreams. And, I was empathic when I was listening as much as I could be, but I'm like, that happens.
Yeah.
I mean, life happens. It doesn't have to go according to a plan for life to work out. I don't think that's the way the Bible always reads.
Right.
And so I don't have that need a lot of times to control all of the details. Now, you asked me about my kids' sports stuff or some other things that were more important to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did try to control that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I always said I wouldn't be that dad.
If I don't step in, it's going to be a mess.
And I was that dad.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe not even a mess, but I think this is the best. I played. I know what's best.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, hypocrite, physician heal thyself, just hypocritic.
Yeah.
Is all get out.
Yeah.
Hypocritical is all get out. So,
yeah.
Not super proud of that, but it is in general, I am more, and this is just wiring. I can listen to the worst of problems from people and empathize. I don't typically carry the weight.
Yeah. That's good.
I mean, I don't know why, but I don't. So I can say, hey, man, that sounds like that's a jacked up situation. Yeah, hopefully it gets fixed.
Well, it's interesting when you said that I don't typically carry the weight. It made me think of, I'll be Bible man for 60 seconds here, but in one of the books in the New Testament called Galatians, there's a verse that just says this, if you see someone who's overtaken with a struggle with sin, you who are spiritual, go and restore them, and help them out. And I remember years ago hearing somebody talk about that passage, and the idea there is not if you see someone struggling, you go and you take their backpack and you start carrying it. You don't take their burden, but rather you go and you say, hey, let me look at your backpack. Can we rearrange it? Can we change this cinch a little bit? Can we lift it up, the bracket up a little bit? Can we help it where it feels more manageable for you? And that's what that made me think of that when you said this. That's I think that's the healthy way to do it. Is when I hear someone who's struggling, when I hear someone who's in conflict, gosh, how can I be there and say, hey, one of the things that would be helpful is for you to blank, have a conversation, stop yelling at each other, whatever it may be.
Right.
I think with our kids, when they were growing up, my tendency, especially when they were little, is when they get in a conflict, it was control monger in me. I'd be just like, hey, look your brother in your eye. He's going to be your best friend, and you're going to have to da-da-da. It was all this stuff of so fear-based in me, but you have to resolve this now. And didn't give them the space sometimes just to be really pissed with each other, because that's part of what it means to be a sibling, is to have the space to be frustrated,
right?
But then to find the way to come back and repair. But I would force the repairs often when they were young, And again, there's a way we train them to do it, but it's not okay. You apologize to your brother now. You apologize to your sister now. I don't know that that's what they needed. But I think sometimes we become adults that want to do the same thing. Then I'll just get the two of you in a room and make you resolve, instead of being okay living with the tension. But let's be fair. If you're in a family where you have a relationship where you're broken with your father, or you're broken with your mother, or you're broken with a sibling, and you don't know how to repair it, that's a painful place to be in. And I don't want to be dismissive and act like it's no big deal, but there are some times when you just have to live with that pain for a season, because if both parties aren't ready to come to the table to resolve, then I don't know there's going to be resolution, even if the third person tries to fix it.
I think even with your kids, when you were saying that, I was thinking, once your kids get past, the early childhood ages, siblings sometimes don't like each other.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I wish I would have had a mulligan on some of that. I did some of the same stuff. Like, hey, you guys got to apologize. Don't treat your sister that way. Don't treat your brother that way.
Right.
Some of a lot of that is just sibling stuff.
Age appropriate development. Right.
And they'll learn how to deal with conflict. Usually it doesn't last. And my methods of, hey, you got to apologize and everybody shake hands and, that doesn't do anything either.
Yeah.
Right. That doesn't do anything either. And so, and it's like you hear the marriage when I don't want to go to bed angry.
Yeah. I'd never go to bed.
I mean, yeah, I get it. But if there's a major conflict, sometimes it can't be totally resolved. And sometimes you need some time to talk through it. And unless you're going to stay up for 72 hours,
Right.
I think just some common sense and a little grace for yourself there.
Yeah. I find myself talking about that a lot with people and saying, hey, look, here's the spirit behind that idea.
Yes.
Look at each other at the end of the day and go, hey, we both are angry. We've not resolved anything. We've not communicated well. And then offer reassurance. I love you. I'm in this with you. This sucks. It's hard, but we both need sleep. Let's get some sleep. And can we come back at this tomorrow night, just sometime? But I think there's something about when we bring the reassurance to it, it's a way, even that I think is healing in the sense of going, oh yeah, we are in this together. Because we let them globalize or catastrophize, and suddenly this conflict is the worst thing in the world. And I can't go to bed angry instead of going, well, we're just not resolved is what we are.
And as a practical matter, when you're tired, that's one of the worst times to resolve conflict.
Laura made a rule, and I thought it was so stupid when she made it, as I have with many of her rules, that on this one I was
Does she have a lot of rules?
No.
You said many of her rules. How many rules does she have?
2. I refuse to answer that on grounds I may be incorrect. No, but she brought this idea at our marriage. She said, hey, I would love for us to not try to have hard conversations after 9:30 at night. And I remember thinking, well, that's stupid. We need to talk about whatever we need to talk about. But I think it didn't take long for me to realize neither of us did well when we were tired.
Right.
She would just shut down and feel like, okay, I can't do this and just disappear. Well, that withdrawal, one of Gottman's horsemen, would drive me crazy. But I would just go on the attack more. I'd become more contemptuous toward her. I just was another horseman where I just wanted to, no, we need to talk about this now. Why don't you care about our marriage? I'd go to crazy man world instead of being able to go, you're right. I don't trust what may come out of my mouth right now.
Right.
No, that's good.
Yeah.
One thing is, when we say this, I just kind of for fun. Have you ever looked at the Thomas Kilmann inventory? Does that ring any bell? I mean, I know you've been around like Enneagram and some other stuff. I just was curious. It's a tool that's been around probably 40 plus years, and it's kind of industry standard when it comes to understanding conflict resolution styles. And it talks about 5 different styles that we have. And I think sometimes when we talk about these 5 styles, we feel like, oh, there's 2 that are good, 1 that's okay, and 2 that are bad. But the reality is all 5 of the styles have a place where they're good to be used. We can use any of them going, this is a healthy way to respond in this situation. And then all 5 of the styles, when used to excess, can be unhealthy. But they make it like a little 5-box quadrant. So think in terms of a quadrant with a box in the middle. So there's 5 boxes. But on the bottom left, it talks about the first quadrant they call avoiding. Some of us use at times an avoiding style of conflict. And it's like literally when the issue is not that important, or getting the relationship to be connected is not that important. It's just like, look, this is a non-issue, and so we just avoid conflict. Like, you can hear where it's healthy, but used to an excess, then we become conflict avoidant, and we don't engage when we need to engage, right? And then I think beside the avoiding is the accommodator, and the accommodating is the one that just says, well, I don't care, whatever you want to do, we'll do. Always accommodating the other person. There's a third style called the compromiser. And the compromiser can be super healthy, like buying a used car, buying a car. I want to win a little, and I know I'm going to lose a little, but I don't want to be taken advantage of. So, it's kind of the negotiated place. And then there's the competing quadrant. And the competing is like where, by gosh, I will win. Whatever I want, I'm going to get. And then the fifth one is the collaborating style. And the collaborating is literally what it sounds like. It's just, gosh, I really want to be heard. I really have something I desire. but Steve, it matters what you want too. So I want to hear what you want as well. It's a much harder way to resolve conflict because it takes more time. But again, all 5 of those styles can be useful. When you hear them: avoid, accommodate, compromise, compete, collaborate, it's blah blah blah. It's kind of Charlie Brown. It all rolls together. So a number of years ago, I started talking about those 5 styles as animals. Like the avoider is the turtle, the accommodator is the teddy bear, the compromiser. The compromise is the sly fox, always working a deal. The competition is the great white shark, and then the collaborator is the wise old owl. And so, I just realized there's times when I need to be an owl. There's times when I need to be a turtle. All 5 of those styles can be healthy, but used to an excess, that's where it becomes dangerous. So, there were moments in my parenting when I accessed the shark too easily, too naturally, too quickly. So I was just like command and control, my way, the highway kind of deal, And then there were times I think Laura would say where she would move to the avoiding or the accommodating with me instead of being able to go, wait, this issue really matters. We need to find a different style, a different approach. So it's just been a helpful way for me to think in terms of what style am I bringing to the table in this situation, and what does this situation warrant from me? Do I need to fight hard because this is so important to me? I have a desire to win, or is this something I really don't care about? I don't care where we go eat. There's no conflict to be had here. You pick the place, and I'm in.
It's good.
Yeah. I've enjoyed being able to have those categories, again, to pay attention to what's going on in me and to understand, how is this person coming at me right now, So again, back to the question, I'm curious. I wonder how the person that gets caught in that triangulated spot, kind of, in the middle, I wonder how they would perceive the other 2 people. Are they coming in hot and wanting to fight? Or are they both withdrawing, but everybody in the room can tell something's wrong? I wonder what's driving them in those moments to step in.
And I wonder what's driving the asker of the question to step in.
Yeah. That'd be really curious. That's where it'd be fun if we did have people call in. I don't know how you do it when you're recording something, but to have the live conversation with them about, hey, well, what's that doing in you when you see that, and what do you want to try to fix? Are you trying to step into it also?
Right. Feels like it.
Yeah,
and maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe they're just wanting to go to that. The person that's stepping in and say, hey, man, I'm watching you step in, and you're getting kicked out of you too much, man. You need to pull back. Can I help you? What do you need to pull back from that?
Right.
I have no idea. I'm speculating completely.
Right.
I did think about the old Cloud and Townsend book that's been around, I feel like forever, Boundaries book. And I thought, he talked, both of those
Who's
guys.
the author of that?
Henry Cloud and John Townsend.
Oh, okay.
They wrote a book, I bet, over 30 years ago called Boundaries. And I know it talks a whole lot about when do we step in, when don't we step in? Where do I begin, where do I end? What's mine to engage with, what's mine to go, no, that's not mine. Because I think this is a real issue for a lot of people that I talk to in my office of, man, how much do I need to get involved in the conflict I see between my parents or the conflict I see between my siblings? And my question is always, well, why do you feel the need? And the answer is usually along the lines of, well, I just want them to get along. Well, what does that do for you if they get along? And I think it does. It brings a false, maybe true, sense of security to us if I can solve it instead of going, but is it really yours to solve?
I think that's the question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And can you solve it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it seems like, I'm certainly not a trained professional in this. It seems like there's a wide chasm between stepping in and offering some assistance and the issue actually being resolved.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really, if 2 people are in conflict, the only people that can fix it are the two people in conflict.
I agree 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I can't force you.
Right. Yeah.
When you look back over, relationships that you've had through the years, maybe with friends, guys you've hung out with, how do you approach when you see something conflictual going on, not with them and somebody else, but with you and them? When you feel like, man, there's something that feels funky between me and so, are you more likely to avoid? You more likely to engage? Just curious.
Top of my head, avoid.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. That surprises me. I think from our interactions in the past, I feel like I see you not afraid to speak into things a lot.
Well, but I think you'd have to think about what are the things I'm speaking into.
Yeah.
Like I will observe. I mean, you're one of my closest friends, so I would say
that's true.
if you and I are talking, and I don't feel any. I don't know that I've ever come to you and said, "Hey, man, this doesn't look right in our life or your life," or I feel like I don't know that I've felt conflict between us.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
it's just observations.
Yeah,
like a minute ago. Hey, these. I hear you talk about these kinds of stories a lot. What's that about?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's not really conflictual, is it?
I don't think so.
Yeah. So for you, probably you're going to take, if you're on the golf course and somebody's snarky or you're just picking up something that doesn't look right, you're probably just going to be like, oh, well.
It would have to get really escalated.
Yeah.
For me to.
Yeah.
So and it would have to be a person that's really close to me.
Yeah.
If it's somebody that's on the periphery or just in the friend ring somewhere and we have some conflict, I'll just let it ride and it'll probably resolve itself.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I don't have that happen very often.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble thinking of an example. I'm sure there are some.
Well, you're so delightful.
I am. And I think that's what people say about me. Delightful.
Yeah, behind your back. I think that's one of the words. Yeah. We might actually get a whole lot of emails this week.
I should get on social media and find out exactly how delightful I am.
What are the words that people use to describe Steve?
Man, delightful.
That's a fun exercise. Sidebar. Totally sidebar.
I think I've probably created conflict. Like an elderly person driving that's caused 6 accidents that don't know they've caused them and just get to their destination maybe or some destination. Because I withdraw at times and I'm sure
when people would rather you engage.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm sure I've hurt people that way.
Yeah.
I know I have.
Yeah.
They've told me. I've had people tell me.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve, we needed or expected or wanted you to step into this, but you disappeared. You stepped away.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've done that. We did have conflict early on in a small group about, me and a good friend of mine, and about how to handle a situation in our small group. And it was just personalities, and he's more of a, we have got to fix this. And I was like, I don't have any idea how to fix this.
Yeah.
And that's between them. And, and so I don't know that was right. But again, I'm always probably going to
err on that side
of less involvement than more.
Yeah. I was curious how what you do when you sniff something like that. Are you good at engaging or do you let it ride? Because even as I've listened,
why does that surprise you?
I think as we talk about it, it doesn't. I think I can totally see that you would be more on that avoiding side. But I think initially it surprised me just because I do think of the number of times that you'll offer observations to me. But you're right; those aren't conflictual. That's just where I think you care enough about me to go, "Hey, man, I just noticed you're saying that a lot. Tell me about that. That's interesting."
I don't think I really don't think I am. I'm not coming out of a place of conflict on those.
Yeah,
I'm an observation.
Yeah. I think that's what I always have appreciated.
Curious about that. And I don't, I guess in my work world, maybe there's some conflict sometimes. I'm pretty good about addressing it there.
Are you?
I think.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Maybe not. I'd have to think about that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm better in my mind than I really am.
Well, I do know this, that being able to resolve conflict in a healthy fashion is what grows trust and creates greater connection in a relationship. When I do it corporately, I'll talk about that old Patrick Lencioni, I think is who came up with the principle, says it this way, that, good leaders demand conflict and they move toward conflict first. And all he's saying there is not that you're yelling and screaming and fighting each other. It's a healthy conflict, but it's like good leaders are not afraid to get all the opinions, all the ideas in the room assuming, like we talked about previously, assuming the right people are in the room, but get everybody to say, man, let's all weigh in on this. And then out of the conflict, we'll defend your position. Through that healthy conflict, we get to the place of going, what's the very best idea? And that makes sense to me. I think in marriage, Laura and I have talked about this a lot in our marriage events that we lead. We'll just say that, the road to intimacy in marriage is paved with healthy conflict resolution. And, the key word, I think, is healthy and resolution. It's not just conflict. It's not just conflict resolution. Somebody stops and we think it's resolved, which it really isn't. but it's healthy conflict that leads us to being able to be resolved. And it's interesting, even in resolution, it doesn't mean we always agree. Back to John Gottman, he talks about that in marriage. Over 60% of our conflicts never get resolved. And some people feel like, oh, that's so depressed. We should be totally one, and we should, be in sync on everything. And I go, no, there's just things you're going to disagree on. And in a healthy relationship, you don't have to agree on every nuance, every jot, every tittle, everything. It's okay to go, I see it this way, you see it that way. That's okay, because that's not a deal breaker for us.
Right.
But there is something about healthy conflict leads us to deeper connection, better solutions, and for this person, again, just kind of wrapping up with this way from that sent the question in. I love the question. I don't know how much we really helped with it, but I do think this person that's getting caught in the middle needs to step out of the triangle, needs to live with a kind of a motto of how to support these people who are in conflict and not solve. Support, not solve is kind of what I would say. And kind of like I said earlier, they're in a crisis, but it's not your crisis. It's not unloving to say, wow, man, y'all sound like you need help, and I'm not sure I'm the person that can help. Like, I think that can be really healthy in those moments.
Yeah.
So 2 days from now, episode number whatever in season 2.
Okay.
We may talk a little bit about the world of fathers. We're kind of kicking around the possibility of that. That's the most planning we've ever done. That 2 days in advance, we're thinking we might talk about something.
I didn't know you wanted to throw that out today.
I don't know. It just is on my mind here. And I thought, why wouldn't we kind of tease them? And then we won't do it. And then they'll be so frustrated, we'll get overwhelmed with responses probably.
We just got the audience on a roller coaster in season 2. On skates, as they say in sports. Got them on skates.
Got them on skates. Anyway. All right, you going out on the golf course today?
I'm not.
All right.
I've got a meeting and a call. It's in the middle of the workday.
Okay.
And I'm actually working today.
Well, I'm glad we got to break away for a few minutes to meet together. All right, talk soon.